Comforted by Fortune, a Batman All Media Types fanfic rated for general audiences, with additional tags for Tim Drake centric, Tim Drake needs a hug, Tim Drake gets a hug, Tim Drake and Jason Todd are siblings, hurt Tim Drake, good sibling Tim Drake is Robin, Jason Todd is Red Hood, protective Jason Todd, good sibling Jason Todd loves Tim Drake, platonically, Bat Family feels, Jason Todd is a Bat Family member, brotherly love, brotherly bonding, platonic cuddling, cuddling and snuggling, fluff and angst, light angst, fluff, domestic fluff, tooth-rotting fluff, bad parents Jack and Janet Drake, absent parents Jack and Janet Drake, hurt comfort, emotional hurt comfort, and fluff and hurt comfort. Part 6 in the Robin Chronicles. Summary. Pulling his legs to his chest, Tim slammed his fist onto the keyboard angrily, stifling a sob as tears flooded his eyes. Why wasn't this working? Why was nothing working today? Tim gasped for air as he hugged his legs, trying earnestly not to break down and cry. He wasn't a kid, for fuck's sake. He was a Drake at that. Drakes don't cry. Baby bird. In his emotional turmoil, Tim had somehow not heard Jason ride into the cave on his bike. Useless. Why couldn't he do better? He was supposed to be Robin. For a second, he tried to tell Jason to go away, to leave him alone just like everyone else had in his life. Instead of that, a loud sob escaped his treacherous mouth. Not even his mouth liked him. Or, Tim needs a hug, and Jason gives him one. I am still afraid of the dark, even though there's a sky full of stars. Afraid of the dark. Chef special. Trying to press the enter key for the third time in the span of a second, Tim bit his lip to keep himself from shouting in frustration. Or worse, crying. This week had been a horrible, abhorrent, spectacular disaster. Monday, he landed himself in detention at school for speaking up in defense of a girl in his class. Her bullies had been sabotaging her schoolwork for the better part of the year, and the teachers were just turning a blind eye to it. Why? Money, of course. The three boys were the kids of some of the wealthiest families in Gotham, all paying considerate sums of money to the school. His teacher, a ratty and dried-up lady, obviously interpreted his act of speaking up as Tim attacking the poor bullies. Subsequently, she sent him to the principal, who then tried to contact his parents, despite Tim's pleas not to. After not reaching them, the principal decided to just give him detention for the whole week. There went the afternoons he had planned for practicing gymnastics with Dick. The elder had even taken the whole week off from work, especially for them to do that. Tuesday wasn't much better. School was hell, boring, repetitive, and just plain irritating. His afternoon was spent writing lines and cleaning old, and by now, unusable equipment. So fun! That evening, when he was sitting at the Waynes' dinner table, because Dick insisted he still stay at the manor the whole week, his parents called him. It was not a fun call. At all. His dad had been furious with him for doing something that would interrupt their business, and his mom scolded him for daring to ruin the family name. We raised you better than this, Timothy. How are you supposed to carry on our family legacy if you cannot even behave at school? Long story short, they tore into him. And when he dared to hope they would finally come home, even if the reason was shit, them coming home and spending time with him, angry or not, would be amazing again. He was swiftly shut down. They'd email him their next itinerary, and that was it. Suffice to say, the day was ruined after that. Wednesday, Tim was going to meet up with Con and hang out in Gotham, much to Bruce's despair. No metas in Gotham, blah blah, screw him. Not really, B was great. The meetup went okay at first, at least until they got into an argument and Con promptly flew off. Such a fucking hothead. Yes, Tim knew that he shouldn't have snapped, and brought up Luther. But fuck off and let him mope. Thursday, he fucking got benched. Why? Because he was stupid. He had been running on a few hours of sleep all week, and it apparently showed. Somehow he accidentally misfired his grappling gun, leading to him realizing midair that he was about to die. Splat on the ground. No Timmy anymore. Bruce somehow caught him, so he didn't die. Yay! But it did give Dick a heart attack and left him in hysterics because of what happened to his parents. No bueno. Both Alfred and Bruce had scolded him thoroughly that evening, leaving him benched until next week. Did he get their point? Yes. He should have slept more. Did he like it? Fuck no. Today was Friday, and it wasn't a good day. School was torture, detention was torture, Bruce was giving him the cold shoulder, Alfred was acting weird, Dick was avoiding him, and Tim hated it. While everyone else was out saving Gotham, he was stuck in the Batcave, Alfred having taken away his suit. He was currently trying to hack into a database, or rather, failing. His coffee mug was empty, he was tired. The chair was uncomfortable, he hated school, he hated that he wasn't allowed to go on patrol, and he despised that he hadn't been able to hack into the database. What a good Robin he was! Pulling his legs up to his chest, Tim slammed his fist onto the keyboard angrily, stifling a sob as tears flooded his eyes. Why wasn't this working? Why was nothing working today? Tim gasped for air as he hugged his legs, trying earnestly not to break down and cry. He wasn't a kid, for fuck's sake. He was a Drake at that. Drakes didn't cry. Baby bird. In his emotional turmoil, Tim had somehow not heard Jason ride into the cave on his bike. Useless. Why couldn't he do better? He was supposed to be Robin. For a second, he tried to tell Jason to go away, to leave him alone, just like everyone else had in his life. Instead of that, a loud sob escaped his treacherous mouth. Not even his mouth liked him. Oh, Timmy, his brother crooned, stepping swiftly up to where Tim was currently having a minor meltdown, before he could even tell Jason to ignore him, because he was just so tired. The elder effortlessly lifted him out of his chair and cradled him close. Tim didn't mean to. He really didn't. And yet, he still broke down the second he was in Jason's embrace. It was as if the cup that had been steadily filling all week just suddenly overflowed. Tears started to soak his brother's neck as he was gently shushed and silently comforted. Lots must have happened for you to be this sad and tired, huh? He heard Jason mumble into his hair. Jay, the oh-so-infamous Red Hood, was currently swaying side to side with Tim perched on his hip, as if he, A, weighed nothing, and B, were a child. Tim honestly couldn't bring himself to complain, and instead let his sobs turn into little, sad sniffles. Let's get you upstairs, Timbers, Jason huffed, starting to walk with Tim still held firmly in his arms, heading for the stairs. Throwing a look back at the computer, and his failed attempt to hack something as trivial as a non-governmental database, Tim accidentally let out a combination of a frustrated grunt, very much learned from Bruce, and a sad sigh. His brother immediately clocked it, and let his gaze glide over to the screens, before shaking his head. Don't worry about that anymore. I'll tell the old man to go do it himself, okay? Tim visibly wanted to object, but ultimately just let himself relax in Jason's arms. Sue him for kind of liking this, okay? He was allowed to, right? Yes. Definitely after this shit show of a week. Fight him. As they ascended out of the basement, Tim only noticed that Jason was still wearing his Red Hood gear when Alfred made a disappointed click with his tongue. Jason only nodded at Tim in his arms before speaking. I'll change my room for once. Gotta get Baby Bird here calmed down and relaxed. Alfred took one look at Tim. God, did he really look that pitiful? And uttered, Very well, Master Jason. The older man was silent for a few seconds before speaking up again. I think it is all due time. Should I bring you two some hot chocolate in half an hour? Jason's eyes flicked down to him immediately, clearly leaving the choice up to him. A hot chocolate sounded good, Tim couldn't deny, but would his brother want it too? And he didn't really want to bother Alfred. He bit his lip, contemplating. It was obvious that Jason saw right through his thought process, as the other decided to answer before Tim could even finish drawing up his conclusions, and the safest answer. Yes, please. Tim opened his mouth to say something, but Jay carried him up the stairs, and was immediately shushed. When someone lets you decide, Tim Tam, there isn't a wrong or right answer, Jason huffed, brushing Tim's hair out of his face. "Do you want to go to my room or yours?" His brother hummed as they arrived on the first floor. Scrunching his face, Tim mumbled, "I don't have a room, remember?" Jason's eyebrows shot up as he let out a surprised bark of laughter. "Oh, Timmy, my sweet summer child. Do you know where the room Alfred assigned you is situated?" When he only stared up at the older man, his brother answered himself. "The family wing. That room is yours, not a guest room." At the same time, Jason kicked the door to the mentioned room open and scanned the bare walls. "Either you are a horrible minimalist, which I don't think you are, baby bird, or you didn't get the memo that you can decorate your room. This looks like a fucking cell at Arkham." "I didn't know I was allowed to," he shrugged. "And I mostly go after patrol and sleep at home." Jason froze. It took him a good few seconds before he turned his eyes towards Tim. "You do what?" "Last time I checked, little Robin shouldn't fly the coop until they're at least 16. How the hell did you get Bruce, Alfie even more so, to agree to that kind of bullshit arrangement?" Once more, Tim shrugged. "I just tell them I forgot something at home." "And you just never come back?" Jason's eyes practically bugged out of his skull. "No. I've heard Alfred tell me that I might just be homesick, which works, I guess." Jason took a long, exaggerated breath, clearly trying to calm himself. Gently, he placed Tim on the foot of the bed before taking a step back. Tim's traitorous eyes immediately watered. He'd definitely fucked up now. "Why do you do this again?" Jason asked, running a hand through his hair. Sniffling, Tim muttered, "To not be a bother? Bruce didn't really want me, remember? I forced him to make me Robin." Under his breath, the older man let out a string of curses that would absolutely have earned him a soap washing from Alfred. "All right, let's make this clear once and for all. Timothy, listen up." The use of his full name had Tim flinching as he watched Jason kneel down in front of where he was sitting on the bed. The older man had his hand resting gently on Tim's knees, looking up at him with his eyes far too serious for comfort. "Oh shit. Regardless of how you came to join this circus, Bruce sees you just as much of a family member as he does Alfred." "But—" Tim tried to interrupt. "No, Tim, you're part of this household, whether you want it or not. Bruce has pictures of you in his study, just like he does of myself, Dickhead, and even Alfie. He might be a repressed man-child sometimes, but you mean a lot to him, okay? Our birthday dinner for him sealed the deal. No escaping anymore." At the end of his rant, Jason shot him a little grin before adding, "And if that's not enough, there's no way in hell Dickface or I would ever let anybody chase our little brother off." God, Tim felt so fucking pathetic as the dam broke for the second time that evening. Sliding off the edge of his bed, he practically let himself fall into Jason's arms, tears running freely down his face. Grunting, Jason caught Tim's lighter-than-it-should-be body and got himself better situated so that Tim could curl up in his lap, while Jay leaned against the bed. "Oh, Timmy," his brother hummed, tracing slow, calming circles along his back. Tim didn't know why he needed this confirmation. Well, actually, he did. He'd needed it from the second Dick started calling him his little brother. From the second Wayne Manor started feeling more like a home than the cold mausoleum his parents provided. From the second the lines between work and family had started to blur. This week had slowly stripped away all his resolve. The walls he'd spent years building to protect himself from strangers, friends, even his own parents, had finally crumbled. They'd been his anchor, alongside his not-so-healthy habit of forming parasocial relationships with people he saw as out of reach. The pictures, the daydreams, the stalking, the Wattpad stories. He'd done it all to ease the ache of being alone and forgotten. And now? Now he had been so close to what he'd always dreamed of. Close, but never quite there. Or so he'd thought. Now, with his guard down and his walls non-existent, he'd shown the first person to come across him all his insecurities. And fate decided that person should be Jason, the one who hated his guts at first for replacing him. The results? The confirmation he'd always craved. The, yes, Tim, you have a place here. The, you're not just a coworker. Yes, Tim felt stupid for not seeing it with his own eyes. Yes, he was supposed to be a detective, but he hadn't dared to hope, okay? Time passed as he cried into Jason's neck. Tim had no idea how much, until Jason finally spoke up. Alright, baby bird. Alfred's gonna be here with hot chocolate in about 10 minutes. How about you go take a hot shower? I'll put some clothes out for you on the bed, and change out of my gear myself. Then we're gonna test out that flat-screen beauty on the wall, because I know for a fact you haven't touched the remote. Sound good? Not trusting his voice, Tim nodded and wiped the tears and snot from his face with his sleeve, which had Jason cringing. Climbing out of his lap, Tim wobbled into his ensuite bathroom and gently shut the door. He heard faint rummaging and then footsteps coming in and out of the room a few times. Taking a shuddery breath to calm himself, and to burn off some of the leftover adrenaline still crashing over his system, he finally stepped into the shower. And he had to give it to Jason. The shower helped. The hot water loosened the tension in his muscles, helped wash away the headache that all the crying had given him, and by the time he stepped out, wrapped in a soft towel, his bed was a pile of pillows and blankets that hadn't been there before. On the corner of the bed sat a neatly folded stack of clothes, just like Jason had promised, and a small handwritten note with instructions to come find him once he was decent. Tim stared at it for a second, then quickly tucked the note away into his nightstand drawer. Because yes, he was going to keep it. He inspected the clothes next. The closet here didn't have much in it, just a few essentials he'd moved from Drake Manor. Tim swiftly recognized that these weren't any of them. Well, that wasn't entirely true. He recognized them, but only because he'd seen Jason wearing them before. Fuck, his inner fanboy was squealing. Childish? Maybe. But he was about to hang out and watch a movie or something with Jason Todd, while literally wearing his Robin's clothes. Tripping over his own limbs and nearly losing the towel in the process, he scrambled to pull everything on. The sweatpants and hoodie were comically oversized, leading to Tim rolling up the sleeves and pant legs until they were at least semi-functional. Did he look ridiculous? Absolutely. Did he care? Not in the slightest. It was so damn comfortable. After hanging the towel back in the bathroom, he padded barefoot over to Jason's room and knocked softly. The door opened. Flash! And a phone camera caught him mid-blink. "Hey!" he exclaimed, cheeks flaring scarlet. "Sorry, baby bird. No can do. You just look so adorable in my clothes." "Fuck, you're swimming in them." Jason laughed, lowering his phone and giving Tim a once-over. Tim must have made a face, because Jason grinned wider and let out another chuckle, before gently herding him back into his own room. "I ransacked mine and Golden Boy's closets to get stuff we don't really use anymore, so we don't have to chill in an Arkham cell," Jason explained, closing the door behind him. "The Flash blanket and plain blue one are mine. The Superman blanket is one of Dick's dozens. Those 2 Batman pillows are also Dick faces." Tim bit his lip, listening. "Are you sure Dick won't mind?" he asked, hesitantly. Jason looked confused. "Nah, I doubt he'll care. Why? You know Big Bird. All big brother instincts and such." Fiddling with the hoodie sleeves, Tim shrugged. "I don't know. He's mad at me for what happened yesterday. He hasn't been able to look me in the eyes all day." That came out more like a question than he wanted it to. Jason's eyebrows shot to his hairline. "Dick face? Angry. Yeah, no. I'm not making excuses for how he's acting, because he shouldn't be avoiding you, Timmers. But I can tell you he's not mad. He's scared. You scared the hell out of us. And Goldie doesn't know how to deal with that crap. Especially when his role model was a guy who beats people up in a bat costume instead of, dragging his ass to therapy." "Oh." "Yeah. I'll tell him to get his shit together tomorrow. Don't worry about it," Jason added with a smirk. Then, out of nowhere, he grabbed Tim from under the armpits and yeeted him into the bed. Shrieking in surprise, Tim stared at him with wide eyes and slapped a hand over his mouth. Jason snorted. "Go make yourself comfortable in your nest, baby bird." Tim pouted dramatically. "Asshole!" Yes, I know. Shame on me for giving the baby bird flying lessons and putting him back in the nest," Jason quipped. With a huge grin and a warm, fuzzy feeling blooming in his chest, Tim started arranging the pillows against the headboard and piling the blankets around himself. Meanwhile, a knock sounded at the door. Jason took the hot chocolate from Alfred, thanked him, and wished the elderly man a good night. He set the mugs on Tim's nightstand, but didn't join him on the bed until Tim gave him verbal permission. "Boundaries are important, baby bird. People shouldn't just get into your bed without permission. And going through Dick's closet when he's not there is okay?" "Shut up, smartass. You know what I mean, you little brat." Without another word, Jason grabbed the remote. Tim hadn't even dared to touch it when he stayed here before, and powered on the TV. As the LED screen flickered to life, Jason selected Netflix, and then swore when it prompted a login. He handed the remote over with a "oh shit," and tugged his phone out of his hoodie pocket. "We all just kinda used Dick's account, so I've gotta look up his login real quick." Tim stared at him. Is he okay with that? Does he know? Taking the remote back, Jason began typing. "Yes, he knows. And who do you think pays for the account, baby bird? If you think Dickface still does, you're dead wrong. So don't worry your pretty little head about it. Alright?" He couldn't help it. Tim let out a quiet giggle, which immediately prompted Jason to hook an arm around his neck and hug him closer, pressing him snug into his side before ruffling his hair affectionately. Jason was making weird growling noises. It took Tim a moment to realize what was happening, and then it clicked. Jason was having full-blown episode of cuteness aggression. Because of him! Whoops. "Anything you want to watch, Timmy boy?" Letting out a yawn, he shook his head. "You choose, please." Jason kept his arm wrapped around him as he scrolled through the endless collection of movies and TV shows, before pausing dramatically. "Oh, baby bird, I'm about to introduce you to the gayest military movie ever made." He grinned and hit play. Top Gun. Tim had never actually seen it before, but Jason's excitement was contagious. He tucked himself deeper into his brother's side and accepted the hot chocolate Jason handed him before the older man took his own mug. Tim took one sniff and sighed. His mouth was already watering. He'd swear on his life he'd kill a man for Alfred's hot chocolate. No one made it better. No one even came close. As they cuddled up together, the movie played on. Tim found himself genuinely enjoying it. The balance of action, drama, and just enough comedy to lighten the tone made it a good time. Even better was Jason chiming in during certain scenes, quoting lines like he'd watched the movie 100 times, which, honestly, he probably had. At the end, they paused for a bathroom break. Tim's. And Jason used the time to bring the mugs downstairs. When they climbed back into the nest of blankets, Jason reached for the remote, but paused, hovering. "Do you want to talk about what made you break down like that earlier?" he asked, voice unusually soft. Tim hesitated, the words crowding at the back of his throat like they always did. But this was Jason, and he already knew. Sort of. So, finally, he nodded, and began explaining. He told Jason about the girl at school, how he'd stood up for her against a group of bullies, and how it had landed him in detention. Jason's face twisted. "Baby bird, these are the kinds of things you gotta tell an adult about. If you don't want to go to Bruce, fine, but at least tell Dickie or me. You shouldn't have to take the fall alone when you're doing the right thing. That's what we're here for, okay?" Tim nodded against his shoulder, quietly promising he would next time. Jason made him repeat it. Twice. Next came the more difficult topic, his parents. He opened up hesitantly, not going into every detail, but enough for Jason to get the picture. Enough to make Jason's mouth pull into a thin line. "That's so fucked up," Jason muttered, jaw clenching. "All the Robins have had absolutely garbage luck with parents. Dick's were killed, mine, barely worth talking about, and yours, cold-hearted assholes who can't even see the real treasure is right in front of them. Tim gave a weak shrug. It's okay, I should have stopped hoping. Jason turned towards him immediately, voice deadly serious. No, Tim. It will never be okay. Don't tell yourself that. They're horrible parents, full stop. Then he paused, expression softening. Sorry, that might have been too brash. Tim snorted, laughter bubbling out unexpectedly. A little. Feeling brave, he brought up Con. Told Jason the full story, including the argument and apology and the unsure silence since then. Jason clicked his tongue. If he doesn't accept your apology, baby bird, I'll just shoot him. Tim blinked. Jay. And yes, Jason added with a wicked grin, I do have kryptonite bullets. That earned him a real laugh. An honest-to-God, warm-bellied laugh. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Tim felt lighter. It was good, talking to someone, getting it out. The movie resumed after that, and Tim would never admit it, but when Goose died, the big bad Red Hood might have gotten emotional. Maybe even cried. Just a little. Probably, definitely, it would remain their little secret. When the movie ended, Tim yawned wide and slow, barely able to keep his eyes open. He didn't say anything, but Jason caught it immediately and laughed softly as he turned the TV off. I'll let you get your beauty sleep then, Timberlina. He whispered, trying to slip away from Tim's hold. He failed. Tim clung tighter and whined like a child. No, stay, please. He thought the plea wouldn't work, but Jason blinked, surprised, and then melted. Are you sure you want a sleepover? I've been told I snore, baby bird. No take backsies, he warned teasingly. Tim yawned again and nodded. Yes, stay. Jason chuckled. Geez, you're so tired. Tim gave him a look that could only be described as the world's most unimpressed glare. All right. No need to ruffle your feathers. Jason placed his phone on the nightstand and turned off the light. Sleepy time. Tim shuffled down into the pillows, already halfway asleep, as he felt a kiss land gently on his forehead. Good night, Timmy. Night, Jay, he whispered back, a soft smile stuck on his face. He fell asleep with that smile still there, warm and full and finally content. Maybe his week had been awful. Maybe everything had sucked. But for the first time in a long while, he was kind of glad it had. Because this moment, it had been worth every awful second. The next morning, a very offended Dick Grayson barged into Tim's room without knocking, demanding an explanation for why he hadn't been invited to the sleepover and cuddle party. They spent the rest of the day shopping for decorations for Tim's room, and that evening, the three of them curled up to watch Top Gun: Maverick together. Blankets, hot chocolate, and all. This time, it was a full-on brother-bonding sleepover, and it was perfect. Notes. If you enjoyed this work, don't hesitate to leave a comment. Come hang out with me on Tumblr. And thank you so much for reading, and have a wonderful day. If you, liked the story, the link is in the description. Go give the author love. And, if you have any fics you would like to suggest me, leave them in the comments below, and I'll read them.